The snow had been falling for 3 hours when I pulled into my brother Marcus's driveway, the headlights of my old Honda cutting through the December darkness. Christmas Eve, 2023. The house blazed with warm light, every window glowing like a postcard of holiday perfection. Laughter spilled out into the night, muffled by the thick walls of the Colonial that Marcus had bought with his tech startup money. I grabbed the bag of gifts from my passenger seat, mostly handmade items and books, the best I could manage on a social worker's salary. The contrast wasn't lost on me. Marcus made more in a month than I did in a year, but money had never been what mattered most to me. At least, that's what I told myself as I trudged through the snow toward the front door. That's when I saw her, a small figure huddled on the covered side porch, barely visible in the shadows cast by the porch light. At first, I thought it might be a decoration, some elaborate Christmas display. But then she moved, a slight trembling that made my blood run cold. Grandma Rose? I dropped my bag and rushed toward the porch. She was sitting in her wheelchair, wrapped in what looked like a thin hospital blanket, her silver hair damp with melting snow. Her lips had a bluish tinge that sent panic shooting through my veins. At 87, Grandma Rose was frail, but her mind was still sharp as a tack, sharp enough to recognize me even in her confused state. "Danny," her voice was barely a whisper, chattering through blue lips. "I've been waiting. They said you were coming." "Jesus, Grandma, how long have you been out here?" I knelt beside her wheelchair, my hands already working to pull off my coat to wrap around her thin shoulders. I don't know, honey. Marcus said to wait outside for you. Said you wanted to see me before I went in." She looked confused, disoriented. "But it's so cold, and you took so long." My heart hammered against my ribs. I could hear the party inside. Music, voices raised in celebration, the clink of glasses. Someone was giving a toast. Someone was laughing, and they had left my grandmother outside in the snow like a piece of unwanted furniture. "Come on, let's get you inside," I said, releasing the wheelchair brake and maneuvering her toward the front door. My hands shook, whether from cold or rage, I couldn't tell. The warmth hit us like a wall when I opened the door. The entryway was decorated with expensive garland and twinkling lights. A massive Christmas tree dominated the living room, surrounded by perfectly wrapped presents in coordinating paper. About 20 people milled around, Marcus's wife Jessica and her family, some neighbors, a few work colleagues. All of them warm, all of them comfortable, all of them apparently oblivious to the fact that the family matriarch had been freezing outside for God knew how long. "Danny!" Marcus appeared with a champagne flute in his hand, his face flushed with alcohol and holiday. Cheer. He was wearing a new cashmere sweater and designer jeans. "You made it! And you brought Grandma in. Perfect timing. Perfect timing. As if this had been the plan all along." "Marcus!" I kept my voice level as I wheeled Grandma Rose toward the fireplace, desperate to get warmth into her trembling body. "How long was she outside?" "What?" "Oh, not long. 20 minutes, maybe?" "She wanted some fresh air, and I told her you'd be arriving soon, so—" He shrugged, already turning back toward his guests. "Jessica made her famous eggnog. You have to try it." 20 minutes, in 30-degree weather, in a wheelchair, with a thin blanket. She was confused, Marcus. She thought you told her to wait outside for me. "Oh, you know how she gets mixed up sometimes. Dementia, right? The doctor said we should expect this kind of thing." Another casual shrug, another sip of champagne. "Come on, don't look so serious." "It's Christmas." I stared at my older brother, this stranger who shared my DNA, but apparently none of my basic human decency. Grandma Rose had raised us after our parents died in a car accident when I was 12 and Marcus was 15. She'd worked 2 jobs to keep us fed and housed, had sacrificed her retirement savings to pay for Marcus's college education. She'd been there for every scraped knee, every heartbreak, every triumph. And he'd left her outside like trash on pickup day. "Danny, dear, I'm so sorry I held everyone up," Grandma Rose whispered from her wheelchair, her arthritic hands still shaking as she tried to warm them by the fire. I got confused about where I was supposed to wait. The words hit me like a physical blow. She was apologizing. After being abandoned outside in the cold, she was apologizing for causing trouble. "You didn't do anything wrong, Grandma," I said softly, kneeling beside her chair. "Nothing at all." "Daniel!" Jessica appeared in a swirl of expensive perfume and silk, air kissing the space near my cheek. "So good to see you." And Rose, darling, you look wonderful. That fresh air certainly put some color in your cheeks. Color in her cheeks. She meant the hypothermic flush that indicated the early stages of frostbite. I spent the next hour making sure Grandma Rose was warm and fed, checking her fingers and toes for signs of serious cold damage while the party swirled around us. She seemed to be recovering physically, but I could see the hurt and confusion in her eyes every time she looked toward Marcus. She didn't understand why her grandson, the boy she'd raised, loved, and sacrificed for, would treat her like an inconvenience. I didn't understand it either, but I was beginning to understand something else. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't confusion or a simple mistake. I watched Marcus work the room, playing the successful host, telling stories about his latest business deals. I watched Jessica flit from group to group, showing off her newly renovated kitchen and her children's latest achievements at Tro, their private school. I watched their friends sip expensive wine and eat catered hors d'oeuvres while they discussed their vacation homes and investment portfolios. And I realized we were an embarrassment to them. Grandma Rose in her second-hand clothes and aging wheelchair, me in my Target sweater and 10-year-old boots. We didn't fit the image Marcus was trying to project of success and sophistication. We were reminders of where he'd come from. The wrong side of town, raised by a grandmother who cleaned office buildings at night and took in sewing during the day. The party was for appearance. We were supposed to be grateful for the invitation, grateful to be included at all. And if that meant Grandma Rose had to wait outside until the appropriate moment for us to make our entrance, well, that was a small price to pay for Marcus's reputation. "Time for presents," Jessica announced around 9 o'clock, clapping her hands together like she was addressing kindergartners. I helped Grandma Rose move closer to the tree, where Jessica had arranged a small pile of gifts for our family. A new throw pillow for Grandma Rose, a Starbucks gift card for me. Meanwhile, Marcus's kids, Tyler, 16, and Madison, 14, unwrapped iPads, gaming systems, designer clothes, and jewelry. "Thank you, dear," Grandma Rose said graciously as she held her $12 throw pillow, the same pillow I'd seen in the discount bin at Home Goods last week. "It's lovely." Tyler didn't even look up from his new iPhone as he muttered, "Thanks, great-grandma," without opening the hand-knitted scarf she'd spent months making for him. Madison wrinkled her nose at the vintage cookbook Grandma Rose had bought her, a 1940s edition that had cost $30 at an antique shop and was actually quite valuable. "What am I supposed to do with this?" "I don't cook." "Madison," Marcus said mildly, but he was scrolling through his own new tablet, not really paying attention. "It's okay," Grandma Rose whispered to me. "They're young." Young, right. When I was Tyler's age, I'd been working part-time at the grocery store to help with expenses, while Grandma Rose was putting Marcus through his senior year of high school. When Marcus was Tyler's age, he'd been mowing lawns and shoveling driveways to earn money for college application fees. But Marcus's kids had never wanted for anything. They'd never had to choose between new shoes and school lunch money. They'd never had to sleep on their grandmother's couch because there wasn't enough money for their own bedrooms. They'd never had to be grateful for sacrifice. Around 10:30, people started leaving. The catered leftovers were packed away. The good china was loaded into the dishwasher, and the expensive champagne was corked and stored. Marcus and Jessica began their post-party cleanup routine with the efficiency of people who entertained frequently. "Well, this was lovely," Jessica said, surveying her spotless living room. "Rose, dear, did you have a good time?" "Wonderful," Grandma Rose lied smoothly. "Thank you for including me." "Of course. Your family." Jessica's smile was as plastic as her Christmas decorations. "Marcus will drive you back to Sunset Manor now. I know you must be tired. Sunset Manor." The state-subsidized nursing home where Grandma Rose had been living for the past 6 months, ever since she'd broken her hip and could no longer live independently. The place with the thin walls, overworked staff, and dining room that smelled like disinfectant and institutional food. "Actually," I said, standing up from the couch, "I'll take Grandma Rose home. I brought my car." "Oh, that's not necessary," Marcus said quickly. "I can drop her off on my way to—" "I've got it." My tone left no room for argument. "It's on my way." It wasn't on my way. I lived in the opposite direction, but I wasn't leaving my grandmother alone with Marcus for another second. The ride to Sunset Manor was quiet. Grandma Rose dozed in the passenger seat, exhausted from the evening's ordeal. I kept the heat cranked up and checked on her every few minutes, still worried about the effects of her exposure to the cold. "Danny," she said softly as we pulled into the nursing home parking lot, "why doesn't Marcus love me anymore?" The question nearly broke me. This woman who had given everything for us, who had worked herself to the bone to make sure we had food and shelter and opportunities, was asking me why her grandson had stopped loving her. "He does love you, Grandma." The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. "He's just busy. Distracted. People get caught up in their own lives and forget what's important." "I raised him better than this," she whispered. "I know I did." "You did," I wanted to say. "You raised him to be kind and grateful and loyal. You taught him the difference between right and wrong, between selfish and selfless. You showed him what it means to put family first. But somewhere along the way, Marcus had decided that your lessons weren't worth remembering." I walked her to her room, a small, sterile space with institutional furniture and fluorescent lighting. Her few personal possessions were arranged on the nightstand: a photo of our parents, a picture of Marcus and me from high school graduation, and the gold locket she'd worn every day for 60 years. "Will you come see me again soon?" she asked as I helped her into bed. "I'll come see you on New Year's Day," I promised. "We'll watch the parade together." She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her all evening. "That sounds perfect, honey. I love you." "I love you too, Grandma." The drive home took 40 minutes, 40 minutes of increasing fury as I replayed the evening's events. By the time I reached my apartment, I was shaking with rage. Not just at Marcus, but at myself for not seeing it sooner, for not realizing how badly Grandma Rose was being treated. I'd visited her at Sunset Manor twice a month since she'd moved in, but our conversations had been carefully positive. She never complained, never mentioned feeling abandoned or forgotten. She'd always spoken fondly of Marcus and his family, proud of his success, even if she rarely saw him. Now I understood why. She was protecting me from the truth because she didn't want to burden me with her pain. I sat in my darkened living room and made myself a promise. This was not going to continue. Marcus thought he could treat our grandmother like an inconvenience, like something to be managed and minimized and hidden away when it was socially expedient. He thought there would be no consequences for his cruelty, no price to pay for his selfishness. He was about to learn otherwise. The plan came to me over the next few days as I researched and prepared. It wasn't complicated. The best revenge rarely is. It simply required patience, timing, and a willingness to expose the truth. Marcus's tech company, Innovative Solutions LLC, had been in the news recently for their big expansion. They'd landed a major contract with the city government to modernize the public transportation system, a contract worth millions of dollars. Marcus had been interviewed by the local business journal, the newspaper, even the morning news show. He was the golden boy of the local tech scene, the hometown success story. His company's website featured a prominent section on corporate values and community commitment. There were photos of Marcus and his employees volunteering at charity events, sponsoring youth sports teams, and supporting local causes. The tagline read, "Family-focused leadership for a stronger community." Family-focused leadership. I spent New Year's Day with Grandma Rose as promised, bringing homemade soup and watching the Tournament of Roses parade on her small TV. She seemed better, warmer, more like herself, but I could see the sadness lurking behind her smiles. She mentioned Marcus twice, both times wistfully, as if he were someone she'd lost long ago, rather than someone who lived 20 minutes away. "Has he called since Christmas?" I asked casually. "Oh, you know how busy he is, dear. The holidays are probably hectic for them." That was a no. On January 2nd, I started making phone calls. The first was to Margaret Chen, the investigative reporter who'd written the business journal profile of Marcus. I'd met her a few years earlier when she was doing a story on social services funding, and we'd stayed in loose contact. "Danny, good to hear from you. What can I do for you?" "I have a story idea," I said, "about elder abuse and how it affects families across all economic levels. I think it would be particularly powerful if you could find a prominent local business leader whose own family member was being neglected." "Interesting angle. Do you have someone in mind?" "I might. Let me make a few more calls and I'll get back to you." The second call was to James Rodriguez, the city councilman who'd championed Marcus's transportation contract. James and I had worked together on several homeless services initiatives, and I knew he took family values seriously. It was a core part of his political platform. "Jim, it's Danny Morrison. I wanted to ask you about the contract approval process for city vendors. What kind of due diligence do you do on a company's character and community standing?" "Pretty thorough vetting. Why?" "Is there a problem with one of our contractors?" "Not yet. But I think there might be an important story coming to light about how we define community leadership and whether financial success should outweigh moral character when we're choosing who to do business with." "That's specific. Want to tell me more?" "Soon." I'm still gathering information. The third call was to Sarah Kim, the producer at Channel 7 News who'd done the morning show interview with Marcus. Sarah was known for her follow-up investigations and her willingness to tackle uncomfortable truths about local public figures. "Sarah, it's Danny Morrison. I have a follow-up story idea about one of your recent interview subjects. Something about the difference between public image and private behavior when it comes to family values." "Go on." "What if I told you that a prominent local businessman who's been celebrated for his community leadership and family values left his 87-year-old grandmother outside in the cold on Christmas Eve while he and his family drank champagne by the fire?" There was a long pause. "I'd say that sounds like exactly the kind of story our viewers need to hear. Do you have documentation?" "I have witnesses. I have medical records from her hypothermia treatment, and I have a grandmother who's willing to tell the truth if someone finally asks her the right questions." The fourth call was the hardest. I dialed Sunset Manor and asked to speak with Dr. Patricia Williams, the physician who oversaw Grandma Rose's care. Dr. Williams, this is Daniel Morrison, Rose Morrison's grandson. I need to ask you about her condition when she was brought in on December 26th for cold exposure. I remember. Mild hypothermia, some early frostbite on her fingers. She was lucky you found her when you did. Another hour outside and we could have been looking at serious complications. Doctor, would you be willing to document her condition and the circumstances that led to it for a news investigation into elder neglect? If it helps prevent this from happening to other seniors, absolutely. The final call was to Marcus himself. Danny, how are you? Thanks again for driving Grandma home on Christmas. Jessica and I were exhausted. Marcus, we need to talk about how you're treating Grandma Rose. What do you mean? She's fine. She's getting good care at Sunset Manor. She was outside for 45 minutes in 30-degree weather, Marcus. She could have died. Oh, come on. Don't be dramatic. She was on the covered porch, and it wasn't that long. Besides, you were coming anyway. Listen to yourself. Listen to what you're saying. You left our grandmother, the woman who raised us, who sacrificed everything for us, outside in the cold because you were embarrassed to have her at your fancy party. That's not... Look, Danny, I know you think I'm the bad guy here, but you don't understand the pressure I'm under. The business, the social obligations, the expectations. Sometimes things aren't perfect, but that doesn't mean I don't care. When's the last time you visited her? Silence. When's the last time you called her? More silence. Marcus, I'm giving you one chance to make this right. Start treating Grandma Rose with the love and respect she deserves, or I'm going to make sure everyone in this city knows exactly what kind of man you really are. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you, you have 1 week to figure out how to be a decent human being. After that, the choice is out of your hands. He hung up on me. Margaret's article appeared in the Business Journal the following Tuesday. The True Cost of Success, When Family Values Become Just Words. It was a masterpiece of investigative journalism, complete with interviews from nursing home staff, medical records, and a heartbreaking photo of Grandma Rose in her wheelchair, looking small and frail but dignified. The story detailed Marcus's business success, alongside his treatment of the grandmother who'd raised him. It included quotes from Sunset Manor employees about how rarely he visited, from Dr. Williams about Grandma Rose's hypothermia treatment, and from neighbors who'd witnessed the Christmas Eve incident through their windows. But the most powerful part was Grandma Rose herself, who'd finally told the truth when Margaret asked her directly about how her family treated her. I don't want to cause trouble, she'd said in the interview, but I raised those boys to be better than this. I thought if I stayed quiet, if I didn't complain, maybe Marcus would remember what I taught him about taking care of family. But sometimes staying quiet just enables people to keep doing wrong. The article went viral locally. By Wednesday morning, it had been picked up by the regional news networks. By Thursday, it was trending on social media with the hashtag Grandma Rose. The city council called an emergency meeting to review Marcus's transportation contract. 3 of his biggest corporate clients issued statements distancing themselves from his company. The Chamber of Commerce quietly removed him from their board of directors. But the real consequences came from somewhere Marcus never expected: his own children. Tyler, his 16-year-old son, posted on Instagram, "Reading about my great-grandma in the news and realizing I don't even know her. When did we become the kind of people who treat family like this? I'm driving to Sunset Manor today to apologize and to start over." Madison followed with her own post. "Great-Grandma Rose taught my dad everything he knows about hard work and kindness. She deserves better from all of us. From me, too. I'm sorry, Gigi. I love you." The posts were shared thousands of times. Suddenly, Marcus wasn't just facing professional consequences, he was watching his own children publicly reject the values he'd taught them through his example. Jessica called me Friday morning, crying. "Danny, you have to make this stop. The kids are asking questions I don't know how to answer. Tyler wants to move in with Rose to take care of her. Madison is refusing to go to school because the other kids are talking about the story. Marcus hasn't slept in 3 days." Then maybe Marcus should have thought about that before he left his grandmother outside in the snow. It wasn't supposed to happen like that. We just thought. You thought what, Jessica? That she was disposable? That her feelings didn't matter? That you could treat her like garbage and there would never be consequences? We thought she wouldn't remember. The dementia? She doesn't have dementia, Jessica. She's sharp as a tack. You just assumed she was senile because it was convenient for you to believe that. Danny, please. What do you want? Money? We can pay for a better nursing home, private care. I don't want your money. I want you to remember that love isn't something you owe because of DNA. It's something you earn by showing up, by caring, by treating people with dignity even when it's inconvenient. Especially then. The story reached its crescendo the following week when Channel 7 aired their follow-up investigation. Sarah had done her homework, interviewing not just our family, but other local seniors whose successful adult children had abandoned them. It was a devastating indictment of how prosperity could erode basic human decency. The segment ended with footage of Tyler and Madison visiting Grandma Rose at Sunset Manor, bringing her flowers and homemade cookies, sitting with her for hours and listening to stories about their father's childhood. Watching Tyler, a kid who'd never shown interest in anything beyond his phone, carefully adjusting Grandma Rose's blanket and asking about her childhood was more powerful than any revenge I could have planned. Marcus finally showed up at my apartment on a Thursday evening 3 weeks after the first article appeared. He looked haggard, unshaven, exhausted, wearing wrinkled clothes that suggested he hadn't been sleeping. "Are you happy now?" he asked, slumping into my couch without invitation. "My business is ruined. My reputation is destroyed. My own children think I'm a monster." "Are they wrong?" He stared at me for a long moment, then buried his face in his hands. "I don't know how it happened, Danny. I don't know when I became this person. You became this person gradually, Marcus. One selfish choice at a time, one rationalization at a time, one moment of choosing your image over your integrity. She was a reminder of everything I was trying to leave behind. The poverty, the struggle, the way people looked at us when we were kids. I wanted my children to never feel that shame. So instead, you taught them to be ashamed of the person who loved us enough to make sure we never went hungry." He was crying now, quiet, wrenching sobs that shook his shoulders. "I can't fix this, can I? I can't undo what I did. No, but you can decide who you want to be going forward." "How? How do I even start?" "You start by visiting your grandmother every week. Not when it's convenient, not when you feel like it, but every week. You start by bringing your children with you so they can learn who she really is. You start by asking her to tell you stories about when we were kids, and you listen, really listen. And then you keep showing up. You sit with her when she's sick. You bring her real presents on her birthday, things that show you know what she likes, what makes her happy. You call her just to check in. You make sure she knows she's loved and valued and important. Will that be enough? For Grandma Rose? Yes, she forgives everyone, even when they don't deserve it. It's who she is. And for you? I don't know yet, Marcus. Ask me in a year. He nodded, wiping his eyes. The kids want to bring her here for Christmas next year. To our house. Jessica's already talking about converting the downstairs guest room so she can stay over whenever she wants. That's a start. I know it doesn't make up for what I did. I know I can't undo leaving her out there in the cold. But Danny, I want to try to be better. I want to be the man she raised me to be. Then stop talking and start doing. Marcus did start doing. It was awkward at first. 20-minute visits where he didn't know what to say, stilted conversations about the weather and current events. But Grandma Rose, true to form, welcomed him back without recrimination or bitterness. She simply loved him, the way she always had, the way she'd taught us to love each other. Tyler started spending his after-school hours at Sunset Manor, doing homework in Grandma Rose's room and helping other residents with their activities. Madison began bringing her cooking experiments to share, slowly working her way through Grandma Rose's vintage cookbook. Jessica organized a fundraiser for the nursing home and established a scholarship fund for kids from low-income families, a project she named the Rose Morrison Initiative. Marcus's business never fully recovered from the scandal, but he seemed lighter somehow, less burdened by the weight of maintaining an image. He started volunteering at the senior center, using his tech skills to teach elderly residents how to video chat with distant family members. And every Sunday, without fail, 3 generations of our family gathered in Grandma Rose's small room to eat homemade soup and listen to her stories about the old days, when love was measured not in dollars or status symbols, but in small acts of daily kindness. The media attention eventually faded. Other stories took its place in the news cycle. But the lesson remained, carved into our family's consciousness, like initials in wet concrete. Love is not a convenience. It's a commitment. And when you abandon that commitment, you abandon a piece of your own soul. Grandma Rose passed away peacefully in her sleep 2 years later, surrounded by family. Marcus held one hand, I held the other, and Tyler and Madison sat at the foot of her bed, reading aloud from the letters she'd written to our parents after their accident. Letters we'd never known existed, full of her hopes and fears and determination to raise us right. At the funeral, Tyler gave a eulogy that brought the entire congregation to tears. He talked about how his great-grandmother had taught him that strength wasn't about having power over others, but about using whatever power you had to lift people up. He talked about her hands that had worked double shifts and sewn countless holes in countless socks, and never, ever struck anyone in anger. He talked about how she'd saved his father's soul by refusing to give up on him, even when he'd given up on her. Great-Grandma Rose used to tell me that family isn't about being perfect, he said, his young voice steady and clear. It's about being present. It's about showing up, especially when showing up is hard. She showed up for my dad and Uncle Danny when they needed her most. And when my dad forgot how to show up for her, she waited patiently for him to remember. She never stopped believing that people can change, that love can heal even the deepest wounds. She taught us that revenge isn't about making someone pay for their mistakes. It's about making them remember who they were meant to be all along. As we left the cemetery, Marcus put his arm around my shoulder, something he hadn't done since we were teenagers. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For making me remember. For not giving up on me when I gave up on her. For showing me that sometimes the people who love us most are the ones who refuse to let us become our worst selves." I nodded, thinking about Grandma Rose's final words to me the night before she died. She'd squeezed my hand with surprising strength and whispered, "I'm proud of you, Danny. For fighting for me. For fighting for Marcus. For understanding that love sometimes looks like a battle, but it's always worth fighting." The best revenge, I realized, isn't about destruction. It's about restoration. It's about taking something broken and making it whole again, even when the breaking seemed irreparable. It's about remembering that every person deserves to be loved, to be valued, to be treated with dignity, especially the people who loved us first, who sacrificed their own comfort for our happiness, who saw us at our worst and chose to believe in our potential for good. Marcus never became the man he was before his success changed him. But he became something better, a man who understood the weight of his choices, the privilege of being loved, and the responsibility that comes with being someone's family. And in the end, that transformation was worth more than any revenge I could have imagined.